Welcome, Internet, to the PixelPlay Podcast, your weekly gaming podcast for gamers by gamers. I am one of your hosts, Kaylan, aka Catastrophe, joined as always by my co-host Adam at CS Radical and Chris at Gin and Chris. This week, we're talking about all the poor decisions being made by the big three or big two game console manufacturers this week. Sony making dumb decisions with Helldivers 2, and Xbox cutting some of its studios. And if you like that and you want to hear a whole bunch more, you can find us wherever you get your podcast by searching for PixelPlay Podcast, or you can find us on YouTube or on Spotify if you want to see us do this with our lovely faces. With that being said, gentlemen, how are we doing this week? Adam, I like your very festive Hawaiian shirt.
Yeah, I'm going on vacation. Did you know? To nowhere.
Life's a vacation.
It's 20 degrees in Canada. It feels like vacation weather.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Might as well be.
So
don't I know it? I fucking picked today of all days to do a shit ton of cleaning, so I was sweaty as a motherfucker before this.
I was gonna say, is that room getting hot toasty yet?
I am like an old man. I get hot flashes and cold flashes all the fucking time, so.
I don't think old men do. That's why they wear pants and like up to their waist all year round. They don't get hot.
Okay, so I'm more like an old lady then.
There you go. That's accurate.
That makes sense. That checks out.
Yeah.
What have you been playing, Adam?
Yeah, what have you been playing, Adam?
I mean, still Aid Chronicle. I haven't really done much else apart from the usual grind. I mean, I guess I played a game. I played a really bad one that I randomized for our new show that we started last Monday for Retro Rando, which went amazingly well considering that I rolled Solitaire as my first game. And then I realized, because the original plan for it when I did this originally was, okay, I'm going to just roll the wheel or spin the wheel, get a game, and if I make it 30 minutes, I get a rating, otherwise it gets disqualified. And I rolled Super Solitaire for the Super Nintendo and went, there is no fucking way I can play that for 30 minutes. That's not fair. So now I've set it so that you have to get 15 minutes to get any sort of rating, and the only way to get more than 3 stars out of 6 is to get 30. So you kind of get stuck between 1 and 3 if you don't get my attention for half an hour or for 15 minutes, and then you get the actual 4 to 6 potentially if you get to 30. I still may play a bad game that's so bad that I still have to play it for 30 minutes because it's that stupid. But if you want to be treated well, you have to at least get my attention for more than 15 minutes. So I ended up playing Super Solitaire, which was fine, but it's solitaire. There's only so much that takes you.
And then
eventually ended up playing
Solitaire.
Look, sorry. Not everybody can be really into free cell, okay?
I am.
And then otherwise, just
forget Adam. Chris, I want to know, where do you fall? Are you free cell Solitaire or are you spider Solitaire?
I have become addicted to all of them because there is achievements related to all versions now. It is in Game Pass Ultimate. But no, when it comes to, I don't know, I've grown really attached to Spider Solitaire lately. So I think I would go with Spider Solitaire. But I also love Free Cell tremendously.
Free Cell is the superior version.
Klondike is the winner.
Because
it makes me think of ice cream. How do you hate that?
You go Free Cell because then you get, like, especially if you go with the old like Microsoft one, you get the king who looks his head wherever your mouse goes.
This is true. True.
I'm sorry, Adam. I cut you off.
I had to spin the wheel a second time because Solitaire was not going to be a 30-minute ordeal. So I got Spy vs. Spy for the NES, and it's exactly what I wanted, aka a game I had no fucking clue what I was doing in for the entire time I played it. And that's what I wanted. That's what I want out of this series. I don't want to roll Donkey Kong Country 2. That's boring. Everybody knows it's a good game. I want to roll something that we go, okay, what the fuck is that? And what the fuck am I doing? To the point that the title of that video is, I don't know how I won, because that's exactly what happened. I won a couple of rounds the first time and went, sure, I'll take the win, I guess, and then went to play from then on else and couldn't fucking figure it out afterwards. I loved it. It's a series that I'm really excited to keep doing now because it's now a case of like, what bullshit garbage am I going to roll this week? Like, that's basically what I'm walking into now. Because for all I know, I could get something really cool. I could play Turtles in Time. I could play Street Fighter 2 Turbo. But I could also get Mario is Missing, which would also be great.
Love it.
I love that there's also two Adams on the screen right now.
Yeah, it
Adamception.
There's two of you, Adamception.
was great.
And putting the gin in Gin and Chris. Chris is coming to us from his bar. Looks lovely, by the way. What have you been up to?
AKA 20 feet away from where he normally is.
Literally,
Don't
I
ruin
actually
the
had to
illusion.
turn off the lights from my
They
gaming
can
PC
see
'cause
the
they were-
bar in the shot.
Yeah, the bar's behind me normally. I had to turn off the nano leaf panels and stuff that I normally have going while I'm doing the podcast because they were showing up here and like messing up with the lighting. And it's all I could look at.
Yeah, your webcam was
so-
probably going, those are colors. Let's just use all of them.
Oh yeah, and it's not one color or something. It was a series of colors that the webcam was like, no, 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 no.
But the real important question, Chris, is how much further are you in Rebirth now?
Actually, that is one of the two games I've been playing. In fact, I was going to say I've actually been playing two Final Fantasy games. The newest one, and technically the first one I ever beat. So I've gone to the beginning and back all the way to the end, and I'm kind of playing both because one of them's more of a palate cleanser.
Wait. So, like, just to clarify, you're playing two. You're playing Rebirth and 16?
Final Fantasy Mystic Quest on the Super Nintendo. Way back. Yeah, that's being played through Retro.
One of the
Arch.
best battle themes in
Going
all
for
of
those,
gaming
going for the
history.
achievements, are you?
Easily. Oh yeah, I'm at the beginning and at the end. I'm doing both for some reason. Well, I know why. It's because I'm much further in Rebirth. It's finally clicking again for me. And I've realized why it wasn't. It really is just like I am open world burnout. Like if it's an Assassin's Creed, I mentally go in prepared for it. And if it was like Mirage, I completed the entire thing in like 25 or 30 or whatever hours. It wasn't too bad. And I knew that like if I at any point I just didn't want to do the open world stuff, it didn't matter. Assassin's Creed, just go do mission, assassinate, blah, 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 blah. And I liked that. But again, I was mentally prepared for it. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has been kind of getting to me with the open worldness. I'm in chapter 10 now. I'm in Cosmo Canyon. I'm not going to say anything else about that just because of spoilers and stuff. Locations wise, it's obviously anybody who's played the original, you're going to know most of the locations. So I'm at Cosmo Canyon. The game is like a 10 out of 10 or a 6 out of 6 for us, obviously, here. As soon as it's like a little bit linear, you're in a town, a major story thing is happening. Like, I just went through the events of chapter 9 and chapter 8, and it blew my mind. I thought it was so incredible, so amazing. The story, the characters, the voice acting, the action, the battles, all of it was so good. But then all of a sudden you do a big part. I think chapter 7 or chapter 8 had a big part. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, let's go to our next. We have to go here. And it's like you're back in the open world. And it's like, okay, this is your location you've got to go to. Just so you know, there's 12 towers on the way. There's these 3 battles you can do. There's these 3 of this, these 3 of this, and then this. And it's like...
Yeah, if you can't help but being a completionist, it is so stop and go.
Yes. And I don't like that because I am... usually a completionist, though I am trying to be better with it. Ever since Kaylan, you and I talked about The Last of Us with the collectibles, and it's like this great story, but then you stop because you're looking for the firefly like pendants that are like a glisten in a tree somewhere in the distance. I've got to get better with this stuff, and I've been trying to do that. And as soon as I stopped caring about the open world, and I know the exact moment it happened to me in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I did this one region, the Corel region, has an open world map. I was doing it. There's just a couple things left I had to do, but I couldn't do it because I had to do a side quest and I didn't want to do it yet. And I was like, that's okay. I'll come back and do the last 2 things. I finally went then just to my next objective. And as soon as I went there, all it did was open the next world map and gave me 12 more towers and all these other things. And I was like, I just went from one collectible map to the other instantly. And I was like, screw that. I'm not doing it. I'm going right to the objective. And when I was there, I was like, you know what? If I don't feel like doing any of this side stuff, I don't have to because I'm here for the story and the characters and all that. And again, as soon as I started doing that, this game started blowing my mind. Like just taking that burden of the open world and feeling like I have to do it all. It's so good. Like I'm not going to say anything to spoil stuff. Adam, you and I will eventually do a side quest gushing about this game, complaining about this game and all that kind of good stuff.
Shit, I hope I remember most of the stuff now because I'm starting to forget it.
Yeah,
the one with the big swords named Cloud.
Oh, that's where I had it wrong.
You mean the really hot one? Yes, I know. That much I know.
Spiky hair. But yeah, so I've been loving it again. I went from chapter 8 to chapter 10 in just a couple nights. It's still like 10 hours or something I put in a couple nights, but game's moving a lot more with me. The story is amazing and everything is amazing, and I'm just ignoring that open world. And I usually need to play 2 games at a time. I can't just focus on one, especially one that's on the couch in my basement, which is where my PS5, Xbox, I mean, my Switch is technically too, but that's portable. But yeah, I can't just only play a PlayStation game, because then every time I want a game, I literally have to come down into the basement. And if I'm not here, it's like it's a mental ordeal. Like I have to leave the sunshine that's outside to go into the basement to play a game. So I usually play at night. So what I usually do is have something portable or something kind of on the side. And for some reason, with that whole retro thing that I've been going through, God, I put so many things on my Steam Deck. I just went like full retro. And one of them was Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. And I was like, if I'm playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I should go back to one of the originals. The first one I ever played. Let's do that. And I'm almost done it. I'm only like 12 hours in, which has been like a little bit at a time. But I have the fast forward feature set to... Oh, did we just lose?
No, Kaylan's back. There was a minor thing. We're good.
Hi.
Discord things. That's all you need to know. Don't worry about it.
No idea what that was.
He got bored of you talking about Final Fantasy. Let's be real.
It is a lot of Final Fantasy, I will admit. But yeah, so the fast forward feature that I have in RetroArch, I have it set to 5 times speed. So something that's normally a 1-minute segment, it's done in like 12 seconds. Once I press I just have to push in the right analog stick, and it just switches it on, and press it again and turns it off. That has made grinding in Mystic Quest so easy, because there's no random battles. It's just these battlefields where you go, and it's like, there are 10 out of 10 monsters. Would you like to, or 10 out of 10 battles, you want to fight them? And it's just like, normally you do one, then you do the other, and it's attack, 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 attack. I put on fast forward, and I hit attack, 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 and all of a sudden I've done 6 out of 10 battles, and it's been 20 seconds. And I'm like, oh, hell yeah. This is exactly what I need when I'm feeling open world burnout. Super speed, like retro game. So I'm...
That's why, like, with
far.
the Zodiac Age re-release of Final Fantasy 12 was so much better, because it had such a fast forward option, so it made so much of that, long walking around and how long those battles could take sometimes. Like, it really does help with that. And I think a lot more JRPGs, whether it's, old or new, could really benefit from that, because there is so much time wasted in these battles now. And I think, honestly, like, as a guy who does still enjoy those games, like, I don't generally 60, 80 hour enjoy them anymore, because it's knowing how much stuff, like, I'm playing Aiden Chronicle and I'm loving the game, but I'm also sitting there being like, I'm spending more time than I want to on this, and I do want to finish other stuff, but I know if I stop, I'm gonna forget what's going on. I can't. Like, I'm very one track with what I do with games, so like I can't put it down for a week and go back to it. So I need to finish it, but I'm also at the point of like, okay, is there any way to make this faster? And there isn't. There's an auto function, but all it just means is it picks your turns for you. It doesn't really speed it up all that much. So it's not doing what I need it to. So it's still a great game, but it's a lot of things now where it's, if your game's going to be this long, you need to give some way to speed it up otherwise. Or in the case of an open world game like a Final Fantasy VII, fucking reduce it a little bit.
I was going to say, like, and this is coming from someone who played one Final Fantasy game and said that's good. Final Fantasy to me seems like that kind of game that would benefit from being a linear single player game, like the whole open world RPG thing. Like, playing Final Fantasy 16, like, it did not benefit at all from being, it was barely a role playing game, and it was not even an open world game in the sense, like, yeah, it was an open world, but like all you're just doing is walking from one point to the next point. There's nothing significant. Like, I feel like those games are ones that don't need to be an RPG anymore, which I know is sacrilegious to JRPG. Like, it's in the name.
Well, it's in the sense of like what Final Fantasy has always been, and Chris and I have said this many times before, it's not what it is today. They're trying to make it bigger and better, and unfortunately, bigger and better in today's age means open world.
Yeah.
Because everybody looks at what GTA does, or what Assassin's Creed's done, or what, well, basically Bethesda and Ubisoft combined have done for the last like 10 plus years, and go, well, we need to be that now. To which most of us have gone for the last 20 years. No, you guys were fine doing what you were doing, and it was great, and people will still love it. Look at what Persona's doing. Look at what Trails is doing now. Look at what other games are doing of a similar status, and they're sticking to it. Even Dragon Quest today does not really do the open world thing. It's still very much what it used to be. And it's working still. If you're a fan of those games, you're a fan of them. And Final Fantasy now is less a franchise so much as it's just an experiment to them now, honestly.
Yeah. Because even the older games, they did have a world map, but they weren't open world. It was just, they couldn't figure out a way, like, you know, in Dungeons and Dragons, normally you'd be like, okay, you're done in this town. Where do you want to go? Oh, we'd like to walk to that forest. It just kind of would happen and you do it and you didn't spend a lot of time there. Final Fantasy had it where you'd have this town, but when you exited, the map was there and it was the whole world, but like you could walk to the next town within 10-15 seconds and then it would open up and you were in that town and more stuff would happen, or you'd get to the next dungeon. Nothing really happened on the world map, and as the game progressed, it started to open up more of the world, but it gave you vehicles and eventually an airship which let you just go wherever you wanted almost instant. And it was more like, all right, I need to go back to this town because I'm looking for this one character and I've heard rumors that they're back there now. So it was never tedious. You'd walk out of the town, get in your airship, boop, 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 land, go back in that other town, and boom, that next piece of story is already happening. So
I mean, your point's really proven too. Like if you play like 6, for example, with a Moogle charm where it stops all monster fights, you clear through that world map real quick. The only reason it feels long is because you get knocked into like 9 battles in between.
Yes.
And if you take that away, the maps aren't that big, whereas battles are not in Final Fantasy games now. It takes you minutes upon minutes to get from place to place. And that's even with like a chocobo.
Yeah. Yeah, it's ridiculous how big they've tried to make it now, and it doesn't feel good. Like Final Fantasy VII's world map, I enjoy more than the open world of Final Fantasy Rebirth. And I'm talking the original like PS1 version, obviously. A nice thing is that for Final Fantasy 1 through 12, you basically have that fast forward function now. If you get any of these re-releases or remasters, all 6 of the Pixel remasters, they don't have a fast forward like everywhere. They have it where instead of walking, your character moves very quick. And the battles, when you hit auto, all it does is it takes your last attack and just automatically repeats it at a very fast speed. So you'd only turn it off if you wanted to change what your last thing was. So if everybody does an attack, you hit auto and it's like, all right, last time all 4 of your characters did attack, they'll just keep doing attack until you tell them to stop. And that has made the Pixel remasters like the definitive way to me to play the original 6 because of that speed. And you can just like go on the world map, battle all you need. And then when it's done, you just kind of go to the next spot and you're good. And also, I think they even have turn off random battles, turn up random battles. Like they've got all these options in the settings now too, to kind of cater to everybody. So I would turn down battles but make it that each battle was worth like 4 times the amount of experience points in those new games. So there's a lot of great quality of life stuff that obviously they didn't have back then, but that's because they were trying to make the game not just be 20 hours because you paid $90 for the Super Nintendo game. Like, you better make it last or else parents are gonna be like, what? And,
we just bought you a game.
Yeah, we just bought you a game. You already have a Nintendo at home, but this is the Xbox 360. Parents. But yeah, so that's all I've really been up to. I've been dabbling in a bunch of other stuff, like a little bit, but it's mostly been those 2 games that have been my attention. Very Final Fantasy, but again, 2 very different spectrums of Final Fantasy, but loving both, which is nice.
Very cool. Yeah, for me this week, I'm still going through Rise of the Ronin. I've barely scratched the surface of this game. I think I'm like doing like the first few missions. Like I finally had my first one where you have to choose whether you want to be working with the Shogun or if you want to work with the Ronin, and I'm loving the game. It is awesome. I have very little idea what's going on. I feel like this is the closest I will ever get to a Yakuza game. It has some Yakuza like elements. So like you can go and take pictures of like landmarks and stuff, or you can, Chris, you're gonna get a kick out of this. I think one of the things you go collect is you can go collect cats. You can go find cats and pet them and stuff. And if you try and find a calico, the calicos are hard. You have to sneak up on those ones because they'll run away if they catch you. Mm-hmm. And it is just hilarious because like you have to catch cats for this cat lady, and you get rewards. And then she's like, "I want to start a cat concierge," and I'm like, "This seems like Yakuza." Getting really close to Yakuza.
Adam, what's that Yakuza game that's actually like a retelling of the story in like ancient Japan or like slightly more like 100 years ago.
Like a Dragon Ishin.
Yeah.
That is Kaylan's gateway. When he's done with Rise of the Ronin, Kaylan, you'll love it. It's the Yakuza game, but
You know it must be because you know how I know because I didn't because I played it for 2 hours and went nah.
Oh, that was
So you know what? It might be a chance.
Yeah, no, I'm liking the game. Like the combat's fun. It's really neat because it is kind of Elden Ring like where it's like dodging and parrying and you have like a certain amount of like they call it like key to like do movements and stuff, but you like parry and you deflect and then you can like go and stab the guy. It feels very much like those old samurai movies where like they're just staying still and then they move and you have to react. Like it captures that feel of being in a like katana duel and stuff, and it's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. Still going through it. The dialogue is absolutely like terrible and poorly like done in the best way. Like it does feel like an old like 60s samurai movie. Like it feels like those Kurosawa movies. I haven't checked, but I almost wish it had like one of those like black and white modes that I could play it through like an old.
Oh yeah, because Ghost of Tsushima had that too. I think that was really cool.
Yeah, so I'm liking it. I still think it's a great game. I think it's one of those games that's going to have some legs as it goes down in price. Like I would be hesitant to recommend it for anyone like full price if they're not on board. Like it's not going to be one that's going to convince you. But I think it's one if you can get this for like $40 or something like that, totally worth picking up. It's a great time. It's going to be a long game, I think, for me, but I am thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah, that's definitely one I want to pick up one day. I'm going to conveniently wait till it's cheaper, but only because the backlog.
I 100% would, unless you're like dying to play it, like because I had an itch to play something like Ghost of Tsushima, but I don't want to play Ghost of Tsushima again. This is kind of feels like it scratches that itch. It's not as good as Ghost of Tsushima. I would much rather have like Ghost of Tsushima 2 over Rise of the Ronin, but as an alternative, this is really good. So, and like I said, if you're like,
I don't understand why you want to play Ghost of Tsushima anyway, because you need a PSN account to log into it now.
Yeah, exactly. That brings us to this week's topic. So, this week has been a disastrous week for poor decisions by console manufacturers, and so I thought we could just kind of jump into that, and we'll do it chronologically. We'll start with Sony. So this week, Sony came out saying that you needed to have a registered PlayStation Network account in order to sign in into Helldivers, even if you're playing on PC. This raised a larger question because PSN's not available in every country. You can't link it. And so the game got delisted by a number of countries. It was like 100 countries got delisted?
It's a lot.
170.
170, yeah. So 170 countries got delisted, so you couldn't even play it. So the ramifications are that basically it went from a positive reviews on Steam down to mixed reviews. And so the two questions I have is, one, what the hell was Sony thinking? And two, do you think this is going to affect the long-term viability of Helldivers? Like, is the honeymoon over for Helldivers, and is this going to affect the player base? So that's kind of what I wanted to ask you guys from Sony's perspective. Now they've obviously they've dialed back and they're like, hey, we heard the complaints, we heard the arguments. They're going to reverse this decision, but has this ruined Helldivers? Is this the end of the honeymoon?
So question one is a pretty simple answer. They were thinking about money.
Mm-hmm.
Because their thought is, well, we get everybody to sign up for PlayStation Network, and that makes our numbers look really, really good next quarter. That's all it is. That is all it is. If they pretend that it's anything else, I saw Helldivers devs say, oh, it's going to help us band better. I'm like, no, it's not. That's a bullshit lie. Even if that's true, that's not the actual reason. Stop lying. It's all about padding numbers. In the same way that Microsoft does whatever it can to make its Game Pass numbers look really, really good, Sony saw, here's a game that is doing really, really well for us, but there is a ton of people that are playing on this that we could use those numbers on. I don't know if because I'm tinfoil hatting this. There might be a chance that maybe the reason they did this is because their numbers are dwindling and it's not going to look as good. And they went, shit, we need to do something fast to get these numbers up. And they thought, fuck it, let's just, make the Helldivers guys put all the PC gamers up on PlayStation. And I know that people say, well, they did say at the very beginning that it was going to be required, but there were issues, so they decided to push it to the later date. I'm like, then you drop it at that point, because why did you assume like otherwise? Because now all of a sudden you're going to have a bunch of people that didn't do it in the first place, and now you're going to tell them to. The only way you get them to do that is give some sort of incentive. Like, I don't know if you give them like a bunch of super credits or like a special skin or something. I don't know what it is. Don't care. It's not my thing to worry about. But the most important part was the region locking, which you knowingly sold this on a platform to people who you knew you were going to take it away from. This goes back to the conversation we had about the crew and being completely taken away now because its servers are offline. This is the same fucking thing, except worse because the game is thriving and you're finding ways to take it out of people's hands. What is the point of owning something if we don't actually own it? I would get it if it was, you know, some like it has to be banned from these for certain reasons, like in the way that like things in Germany are banned for Nazi iconography or anything like that, right? I don't know if there could have been anything in Helldivers that might have facilitated like that in some countries, but some countries are fucking weird, so what do I know? But this is a case of just, this is a really stupid decision that was definitely made by somebody at the top of a boardroom that doesn't have a single fucking clue on what's going on in this industry. They're just looking at graphs and charts. That's all it is. The second question of, is this going to fuck up Helldivers? It already has. It's just a matter of how much now. And I think what'll really be the telltale is what the numbers look like by the time we get to June. Because right now it's still decent because, again, the PlayStation base is what's holding up a lot of it anyway. But, like, when we get into the summer, especially once the showcases start coming in and we start seeing what new stuff's on the horizon and other already running games showing their new content, Destiny 2 has got new content dropping soon. We'll see. Because now people's are in a bit more of a, fuck you, I think I've had enough playing this game anyway. I got my money out. They got their time's worth, and now they can move on to something else now that the company's kind of gotten under their skin. And it's easy. Like, I mean, Chris, like, our friend group is starting to get in the stages too because of this, of just being like, you know what, we could probably play something else now. We don't have to keep playing Helldivers every single time we get together.
Yep.
Chris, what about you? Why do you think this was the decision by Sony, and do you think it's hurt the long-term legacy of Helldivers or its success going forward?
Well, I fully agree with Adam, tinfoil hatting and all, that it's just that Sony wanted to increase their PSN numbers. They assume it's going to help their business down the line. Whether it's be like, oh, wow, like, look how cool PSN is. I'll go buy a PlayStation, or I have no idea. Like,
also
who knows,
to make more
why
money sharing the data.
Oh, and sharing data, 100%. There we go. That true. Sorry, that too. So yeah, Sony did it at Agreed, 100%. I felt bad for Arrowhead during the entire thing because every tweet from them was like, not us, it's Sony. We just want to make great games. Like, you can tell they did not want this, and I would never point a finger anywhere near Arrowhead or any of its developers. This was definitely a Sony head office decision that happened in some meeting on a freaking Wednesday afternoon. Like, that was just Sony being Sony, or at least the new Sony that we know it as. And as for like hurting the reputation, I do think it kind of will. I don't think the game's dead or anything by any means. I think it's still going to be a very popular game. There's going to be people on it. But I think people will be more weary for sure with it and stuff, because like the countries where the game was not listed. Because I'll admit, like when this first came out and I saw people being upset, I was like, you don't need to be upset. Like, I get it. You don't want PSN, but like it takes a minute. It's free. Just do it and keep playing your game. But then once I learned more, where it's like, yes, but there are this many countries that don't have it. They've already got it, and they're not giving a workaround. And it just kept getting worse. Sony then all of a sudden delisted the game there. Valve was clearly pissed off because they came in. Normally you can only return a game if you've played it for 2 hours or less, because it's a digital game, right? It's not a physical game you can return. Valve completely removed the hour requirement for that game. You could have played 2,000 hours, but if you can return it now. Like, Valve was clearly also not very happy because it's not like them to just allow that. That's pretty crazy for such a big game. But yeah, so like all those people in those countries started returning the game. They're like, well, I better jump on this now before maybe Valve puts it back, and then I'm going to be stuck with this and I can't ever play it again. And then all of a sudden overnight, Sony backs out on it. And now all those people that return the game have got to go back and rebuy it, and then now they'll be able to.
Has the region locking been fixed yet? I know the PSN thing's being left alone, but I haven't heard that the region locking is fixed.
With
well, if they remove the PlayStation,
relisted it. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
See,
But
because from what I've read so far, I
I
don't think they've reversed the region locking yet. I think it's just the PSN thing they reversed.
Well, I thought the region locking was based on the availability of PSN, but if PSN's not required, then the region.
Well, they
locking
still
would be...
it's from unless I haven't seen it because I haven't looked. The Helldivers subreddit hasn't given me any indication. It seems like it's still region locked.
Wow, like they'd have to go in and like unlock it and like make it available in those regions again manually. Like Sony would have to request that, and if they haven't requested it, that's stupid and makes no sense. I'm sure they will, because why wouldn't you, unless that and if they don't, to me that just means they are going to make the PSN thing mandatory again, but later, months down the line, where people have forgotten about this time and now nobody will be in one of these areas where there is no PSN. So to be like, oh no, why are you guys all complaining? See, it's only available where PSN's available, so it's only a simple 2-second sign up. And I guess they're hoping we all forget because our brains are based on Instagram and TikTok now, so it's pretty easy to actually assume that. But yeah, so I think this is going to hurt the game, and it's not because of the developer, it's not because of the game itself. It's kind of just like, the person who actually owns this game may come in and do bad things. And then because of that, maybe I don't want to pour all of my time into this. It's a bit of a bad taste in my mouth. Plus also, like, what if they come in and do something else after the fact? What if they delist it yet again? What if they relist it, then delist it, make a PSN mandatory, maybe do something else? You know what I mean? Come in and start making, the what the heck are they called? The expansion things that you can buy, like a lot more like the battle pass is only money.
That was what I was about to say. Is like now everybody's guards up, and now we're looking at, okay, what else are they going to try now? Because that's the next thing is, Nick. Now that the game's been around a little bit, and now that their customer base is going to get lower, what's the response to that? I think for the time being, it's still going to be fine because they still have way more customers than they ever expected to. But we talked about this at some point when the game was first coming out, of being like, isn't it amazing having a developer that's doing so many good things about it? But when's that going to change because of how well it's doing? And lo and behold, it's starting. I didn't think it'd be this soon, to be honest. It seemed like this was going to be pretty good for a while, and then just out of the blue, this came around, and we're like, oh, I guess it's now. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm of like an equal but different mind than you guys. So I think from the perspective of like, why did Sony do this? I think it's just a matter of, like Adam kind of said, like getting that like the numbers up for subscribers. But I think there's a larger aspect of it too, in that in getting the subscriber base for it, you're doing a couple things. One, you're getting player data and habits and stuff, so you can kind of get info of like, when are people playing, how are they playing, that sort of thing. I don't think it's necessarily like to sell PlayStation. Like, I don't think that's going to be the case because they're already getting the system that they want. But I think one, it's getting that player data so you can kind of get more insight as to how people are doing things. Second, I think you sign them up for PlayStation PSN, you now have their contact information. You're now able to send them like updates on what's going on at PlayStation. You have that stuff where you can push advertisements and notifications. And then third, do you guys know if you like register your PSN on Steam, do you get achievements in PSN?
They said they're going to start with Ghost of Tsushima, but I don't know if that would have included Helldivers. Previous games, no.
Yeah.
But I think that's something they are implementing. They're definitely doing it with Ghost of Tsushima.
Because like it's one of those things that if they start doing that, then you start building your, trophy list and stuff, and then you start getting that attachment to the network. That, the PC market is now the new competitive space for console gaming, where Xbox and PlayStation are both vying to get that demographic of players. And by entrenching them with a PSN network where you have, as stupid as it is, trophy lists and stuff, like you're now more inclined to play games through there. And that may eventually translate into buying a PlayStation. Maybe not, but you're just capturing that. Like you become the incumbent console manufacturer for the PC player, that they're going to choose that over Xbox. As for like the reputation of Helldivers, like I'm of two minds. I think it's good in that the sense, like Arrowhead comes out looking good in this, and they're like, hey, we're coming to bat. We disagree with this. We're going to fight to make it right. We fixed it. We're canceling this decision. But I think it did hurt the player base because this game is not dead. It is still a very popular game, but the hype for it has died down. The people who are playing now are the diehard players. Like, I've fallen off of it. You guys have kind of fallen off of it. That this blemish might be the time where people break out of that habit and they may not come back. Whether that's a situation of someone taking the return, like if they put 2,000 hours in and then they have an opportunity to refund it, they may say, you know what, I got my fill, I don't need to go back, and I'm no further out. Or you just have people who are like, hey, I'm not playing Helldivers right now because I'm frustrated with it, I'm pissed off, I'm not going to play, I'm going to protest. And now they go play something else like Rise of the Ronin, and they're like, hey, you know what, I'm having fun with this, I don't need to play Helldivers anymore. You're getting them out of that habit, and I think this was like a bad decision for them that I don't know some people are going to come back. So I think I think it didn't hurt the studio. I don't think it hurt the game in and of itself, but I think it just kind of killed the hype for it a little bit. Like, I find more and more like they're doing updates to this game and it's not getting the fever pitch that it used to. Like the war bonds are coming out and people don't seem super excited about it. Like, it's getting into that niche demographic, and especially because I feel like every time the DLCs come out, like all the updates come out, it always seems to be nerfing the weapons. It's not making you feel more powerful. It feels like it's making the game harder. And so I think like people are kind of getting frustrated. So we'll see what happens in the long run. But
yeah, I mean, the way I
think,
look at it right now is the game is 3 months old, and as a live service game, it's still 8th right now on Steam in terms of concurrent player base. They're still doing 100,000 usually daily, so that's still really good. Now it's a matter of, okay, now that this event's happened, you've got most of the people that are mad, they're gone. They'll probably come back. They'll come back if something interesting happens, but they're probably permanently gone from playing all the time. But now it's an Arrowhead's court to be like, all right, how do we, in our next big thing, like, what do we do to fix that? Or in the case of even Sony, like, Sony's got a showcase coming up now. This would be a good time to take some goodwill and get it back. So, like, the next 2 months specifically, even the next, 30 days is really going to be a telltale sign of, like, how the future of this game is going to be, because it's going to see how they respond to really what could have crippled most games at this point.
Oh, yeah. Like, it's a bad timing, especially because there's rumor that there's supposed to be a PlayStation Showcase coming up, and that's just not a good look to come out of. Especially, this is also a huge damage for PlayStation in that this is what they're pushing for these live service games, and this is how they're handling their first major success. And it doesn't bode well for the service as a whole. But luckily for Sony, they're not the only ones who put their foot in their mouths this week and pissed off the internet. Let's pivot over to Xbox. It actually came out, I think, today, that Xbox is closing some of its major studios, including Arcane Studio. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up here. They're closing down like Arcane in Austin, which made Redfall. They're closing down Tango Gameworks, which made Hi-Fi Rush and The Evil Within. They're also closing Alpha Dog Games, which is like the Doom mobile games. And Roundhouse Studio is going to be like incorporated into the Elder Scrolls Online. Lots of jobs being lost, and it's interesting that some of these studios like Tango, making things like Hi-Fi Rush, are being closed down. Do you think that this is why do you think Sony or Xbox is doing this, and do you think that this is the right call? I'm gonna start with Chris this time. Adam, you can go next.
I don't think it's the right call. I'm sure if it was one studio, like just the Doom Mobile one, I think people would be like, yeah, Doom Mobile, I don't even know what that is. Okay, cool, whatever. But I don't think that this is the right call, in the sense of what I believe they're trying to do is they're trying to kind of just they bought, Bethesda, and they bought Activision, all this, and now they've got all these studios, and I think they're trying to just shrink them. Take Bethesda, instead of Bethesda having all these, the Tango and the Arcane and all that, and just kind of like, all right, all we've got is really just Bethesda, and things that come out are from Bethesda. And it would have been like, I feel like they could have done something different. I get it. I'm not like their CEO. I'm not their chief financial officer. I don't know their financial situation. But I imagine that they're fine because they are Microsoft. I'm sure this has got to do with like shareholders and stuff as well. But I feel like they could have just done, more of a movement versus a like layoff kind of situation. Like, you have all these talents, you're not pumping out many games as it is. And you're getting rid, like, out of 3 games that released last year for Xbox that I can think of off the top of my head, they've just canceled 2 of those studios. Which, like, without them, all we would have had is Starfield. Like, I can't think of a single other Xbox thing. I guess there was Forza Motorsport, fine. But still, like, they're closing so much of what, like, was their main Xbox stuff, right? They could have just been like, hey, you know, we're going to turn all of these studios just into Bethesda. We're not going to have all these different names. They're all one big team now. Bring them all together. And then after that, then they could have started to look like, all right, where do we have too many people? Or like with all the things that we've got going on. I know layoffs and stuff are pretty common now with lots of companies, and I think it sucks. I'm sure some of it is maybe, you know, not that bad because that's just something that happens all the time. And we're just hearing about a lot of it now because of how common it is. But like, I really don't think this was the right move for them, because now a friend of mine had mentioned it's almost like they're turning into the Embracer Group. Like, they've bought all these big studios, there's so many of them now, and then they don't know how to manage all of them, so now they're getting rid of them, like, so soon after buying them. And choosing ones that I'm assuming were just like, well, Tango's pretty small, we'll get rid of that one. Sure, it's financially great and makes great games, everybody loved Hi-Fi Rush, but obviously, you know, it's not, it doesn't make like huge money like Starfield or something like that. So it's a smaller game studio. We'll get rid of the smaller one because it's not too big. It's not too small. It's, you know, if we get rid of them, won't look too bad on the industry because it's just like one small one, or I don't know what the heck that would have been going on.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what Take-Two did also earlier this week as well, where they closed down 2 studios. And that also came on the heels of them buying Gearbox for 450 mil. So you're like, is it really that, you know, you don't think there's any use for them, or did you spend too fucking much and now you got to pay some of it back?
100%, and that's what's happening to Microsoft. I think
and it's shitty too because people are losing their jobs because somebody got too greedy again.
Yeah, and they don't know how to manage it. I'm sure they could have kept all these studios and it would have been great, but like Xbox bought all of these studios over so many years, and they still have very few games that seem to be coming out. And you look at the list of studios they have, and it's like, how do you not have like 15 games a year at this point with this many studios? Like, if you just had a cycle, even if it was a 5-year cycle, I'm assuming they would still have that many per year because of how many freaking developers they have.
Goes back to what we said. They need to start making smaller fucking games, but nope, it's got to always be bigger and better.
Yeah, and
look what happened. Arcane Austin is shut down because they've tried to go bigger and better with Redfall, and it fucking bombed.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Tango really piss me off, because Tango is exactly what we should be seeing the industry go towards, and that studio got canned. That was my game of the year last year, and I would easily argue top 5 and the biggest breath of fresh air. How does that make the industry look right now that studio is gone after a year? Didn't even make it, just over 12 months after Hi-Fi Rush released, and it's gone. Does that really not tell you where the AAA industry is and why, as we said earlier in last month, we need AA back? Because the AAA industry is eating itself.
Yeah. It's eating the smaller AA good games to try and survive itself, which it won't. Because these big AAA games are just not, they're not sustainable anymore. They're so expensive.
Like, how many times are we going to say it?
Get rid of all this small good stuff.
Devs, publishers, you're not all fucking Rockstar. Stop trying to be Rockstar. It doesn't always work. And even when it does, it eventually fails. How many franchises are either dead or dying? Halo is a big one that no one would have thought was ever going to be losing its edge, and it's been slowly fading away as time goes on. And it's because, again, the AAA industry always has to go bigger and better, which means more money, which means more resources, which means if you fuck it up, that's a massive loss. And what does that usually mean? The CEOs take a pay cut. Just kidding. People get laid off.
Yeah. Brutal. Kayla,
not everybody is Satoru Iwata. May he rest in peace. Beautiful bastard.
I'm of 2 minds with this, right? Like, I'm not in favor of cuts, and I'm not in favor of like the industry, because like the more volatile and insecure this industry is, the less we're going to get people who want to. Like, if you are a software developer, you are coming into the game industry because of a passion, not because of job security or pay. You could be making much more money and being much more secure working somewhere else. That being said, Xbox is a business, it's a company, it's designed to make money, it's designed to be profitable. Anything else is a bonus, but that is what they are about. And as much as like I don't want to see games get crashed and I don't want to see them fail and stuff, like the studios that they have coming out, like Tango is a great double A publisher in the sense that if you think about like Hi-Fi Rush is cool, it's a unique idea, it's fun. I don't think it was super effective, like super expensive to make. But it also didn't light the world on fire. Like it was a huge game in Xbox, and I feel like that's because, no offense, the scope of what Xbox offers for games is pretty limited. That like if this came out either on a Nintendo console or on a PlayStation console, it would be good. No one would say it's bad, but it would not be heralded as this amazing, fantastic game.
I'm almost willing to think it'd be better because they would have at least put some marketing behind it, because they sure as shit didn't on Xbox.
Maybe. I'm not here to argue. Like I'm not saying that it's a bad game or anything, but it is a true double A game that in the world of AAA games doesn't quite live up to the hype. I think it benefits from the fact that Xbox has a limited library, and so games that are good kind of shine there. But if you look at stuff like Arcane Austin, like Arcane Austin came up with Redfall, which one bad game shouldn't be a death knell for a company, but like, can you like I was looking and I can't figure out what other games they made, because I think like Dishonored
Prey.
and stuff. Prey. Once again, that's not a game that lit the world on fire. So like
originally I freaked out because I thought it was all of Arcane when I realized it was Austin, who are not the guys who do Dishonored, Deathloop, and currently Marvel's Blade. I relaxed a little bit. I still am not happy about it, but at least like with Arcane Austin, if there's anyone that I can understand, it's that one, because they lost a fuck ton of money because of Redfall.
I totally agree, but like, and I'm not like I am sad for the people who are losing their jobs. I'm sympathetic to those people. I'm not saying like they deserve it. Nobody deserves it. Like no one should be losing their jobs. That's not what I want. But
apart from the people who made the decision to make what Redfall was,
100%. Like there's some like it needs to go to the top. It's the people who do the work that don't make the decisions that suffer from it. But going back to it, Arcane Austin has not had a fantastic hit in 2 years. Like Prey is good. There are people who love that game, but it is not a game that is revered, especially for a studio like Xbox, who is not having a lot of success with their hits. That they probably need to start making some decisions of where that money is going to go and who it's going to fund to. Like almost in a bad way of kind of putting like triaging it. They've only got so much money to put, and if they want to go for these big blockbusters, both Tango and Arcane have not done massive blockbuster releases. Once again, going back to Hi-Fi Rush, it's a good double A game. It's a cool idea. It's a cool experience, but it's not comparable to a like triple A game on like, even if you think of something like, I'm trying to think of like what would be the PlayStation equivalent of that, like something like Astrobot or something like that, right? Like I'd say those two are in the same category, and I think Astrobot gets a better reception or is liked or talked about more than Hi-Fi Rush. I think Hi-Fi Rush benefits from that limited quantity. Redfall's garbage, and the fact that they're like, hey, we're like Redfall, like the Arcane studio is working on a huge update and DLC for Redfall. Like, no offense, let it go. Like if it didn't pan out, like just don't put bad money after good. Like it's a sunken fallacy.
Well, the only thing I would argue is that there are people that bought editions that are owed stuff still, so that ends up being understandable.
Oh, 100%. I get that. And now Xbox is in a position where they're already doing the refunds. So they could have already just said, hey, you know what? We're going to cancel Redfall, cut our losses. If you bought the premium edition, we're going to get you the refund for the difference. Like options like that. I don't know.
Assuming they'd actually do that.
Assuming, like they've said now that they're going to do some sort of like giving back for the people who bought these editions. But like, I get it. Like Xbox only has so much money and they can't fund everything. And if it's not producing what they want it to produce, then they need to make some cuts and readjustments. This is two separate conversations. I am still of the mind that you should have AA games and AA studios, but that's not the strategy that Xbox has right now. And so they have to put their resources into what they want, which is the large AAA games. And I think that money is going to go to other studios like Bethesda, and maybe it'll mean that we're going to get a Fallout game in 2 years instead of 4 or something like that, right? They've only got so much money and they have to decide where they're going to put it and how they're going to use it. And it's either you keep these studios alive and afloat, and they produce what they're producing, or you put that towards something else that might be reflect more of the Xbox vision. So
Yeah, and it's
Xbox
going
is
to be
in a
a
weird
Fallout
position.
game where it's going to be like, oh, you're going to need 200 hours to finish this game now. Where we're like, great, you didn't learn.
And I'm not saying like this is like the smart move for Xbox. What I'm saying is like this is probably what they're doing. Like they're reallocating resources, and this is the fallout.
This is somebody who's already screwed up like 7 times, really doubling down on it and just going, nah, I don't care if we just cut off a shit ton of jobs. I know what I'm doing, and you know, if we fail, it's gonna not matter because I'm still gonna make my millions of dollars, and all y'all can suck it. That's what a lot of these people are.
And it's interesting because like we've talked about this before in terms of like Game Pass and stuff, but it's interesting that Xbox is closing down and getting rid of studios when they have so few games as it is. Like you don't have the luxury of cutting games. And I feel like Xbox is the one company that would benefit from, hey, we've got a new AA game every 3 months coming out. Like we've got something like Hi-Fi Rush where, hey, it's not going to set the world on fire, but you're going to be super excited. Like you're going to enjoy it. It's going to be fun for a couple hours. It's going to be different. And then you know what? It's on Game Pass, so you're not risking it. You're not spending a lot of money just to see if it hits or not. I think should be Xbox's decision, but that's not what it is. And if they're going after this, like trying to compete with Sony for these massive blockbusters, then they've got to start cutting the ones that aren't hitting it, and that would be Tango Games, and that would be Arcane Austin. So,
I mean, shit. Like
now, once again, not defending, not saying like. This is the right call.
No, we get it. You hate small devs. I get it. No, I understand.
Yeah.
Well, like if you really want to get tinfoil hatty too, like there's been the rumors of making the rounds again that they're potentially looking at again getting out of the console game and getting into just making games. And if that was the case, you know, it could make a little bit of sense to start cutting some studios out because, well, how many publishers are sitting there with, you know, 30 different studios making games for them? That's not usually what happens. And I mean, as we're saying, the console keeps not having stuff coming out for it that isn't just whatever Game Pass is shelling out. So, hey, you know, it looks a lot better if you're a developer now rather than a console manufacturer and you're still only making 3 big games a year. That might look a little bit better than you own a console and I don't know what the last major game was for you at this point. I've forgotten. It may actually be Starfield and I just don't know.
It is Starfield.
It is Starfield.
Well, there you go.
Also, talking about it, we're supposed to get Hellblade this month, and I've seen next to nothing about it.
And I could not care less at this point. Like, whatever interest I've had in it when they first shot the trailers for it, it's gone, man. It's fucking gone. Like, I don't know what they're doing over there. There's no interest in what they're doing. Like, the Xbox Game Showcase, like, what's the interest? Like, Indiana Jones, maybe, and even then I'm tepid on that because I don't need Bethesda to give me another tower simulating game.
Like, for me, like, I think about it, and, like, Hellblade's coming out, and that game's supposed to be only, like, 4 to 6 hours, which is fine, but I feel like I've spent more time watching promotional trailers for it, and, like, them talking about it than I am actually going to play it. And for that to be one of your big tentpole games, because I think the big ones are Indiana Jones and Hellblade, and a DLC for Starfield, and that's it for this year. Not to say Sony has a lot more coming, but like Sony has a little bit of laurels to lie on in terms of like, hey, we've already had some good exclusives.
Yeah,
because like
when is the Xbox going to start hitting its stride?
Just thinking a lot of like what they might be working on. Like, there's still a Perfect Dark game, maybe. We keep hearing they're making one, and we still never see anything about it. Nothing from the Halo guys, nothing from the Gears guys. There's probably a Fable game. We'll see. Much like a lot of things, it's like, yeah, I'm sure that'll come eventually.
Yeah, the Fable game's supposed to be coming.
Yeah, Hellblade
I think the general consensus is that like Xbox has a problem with its developers in that it's not getting the results it wants. Like the fact that like Perfect Dark has been listed for so long, and you know Fable has been like Fable got announced back in the Series S, I think, or the Xbox One, right? Like that's when we got the first like, hey, Fable's coming out.
I actually don't remember.
Yeah.
And like they haven't. So,
I'm trying to go back into my memory of like what else is on the showcases. Wasn't there that like BioShock looking one that they had?
Yeah, it's called like.
Isn't it called like Clockwork something?
No, I think it's called Judas or something.
No. I think we're thinking 2 different things. Let me go.
There was some sort of clock something.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh yeah,
Clockwork Revolution.
But that only got announced like last year.
But this is what I mean though. Like, what's coming? Like Undead Labs, are they working on another State of Decay? Maybe. Who knows?
Probably.
Turn 10 is just going to basically do Forza until Forza dies, which may never happen.
Hey, it didn't die with
Rare-
Halo, so why keep going? Why stop?
Yeah.
What was Rare doing anything now that Sea of Thieves has been mostly done? Were they not working on something else?
Weren't they doing Perfect Dark, or did that go to someone else?
No, that's the Initiative, I think.
Oh, maybe. I think suffice to say, like there's a
Everwild
problem of, like,
apparently is what Rare's working on, but we haven't heard shit about that in a while.
Is it
Yeah.
Valve?
But yeah, like
a
just looking at their
Xbox
major
property?
studios, like
that's Oblivion. Yeah,
what's the big thing?
it's Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I think it's Indiana Jones and
to be
Hellblade,
completely honest, I don't think there's obviously intrigue, but like I don't feel like there's an Xbox game right now that we know is coming, whether it's dated or not, that people are going, oh, I can't fucking wait for that. It's not that general opinion. I think a lot a people are just like, like if it's good, I'll play
PlayStation's
it.
also in that boat. There's really no PlayStation exclusives coming out that anyone's like.
That's also
excited
because
for.
it's their own damn fault for saying, yeah, don't expect anything. So we just stop caring.
Yeah, I think both companies, but like Xbox in particular, like there's a bit of a misstep with this generation in terms of getting games out, and whether that's the pandemic, whether it's development hell, I don't know. But like,
I mean,
the amount of
that's a
studios
great
they have,
conversation for next episode. Like, geez, what the hell's happening between all our major companies? No one's releasing anything, it feels.
Yeah,
I think it's just Xbox is in a weird spot that they've have so many studios, they've announced so many games, and there's just nothing that's come of those. And I feel like there's a larger conversation, and I don't think it's worth us having because we don't have the insight, but it'd be interesting to see what's going on with like the project management side and like what's taking so long to get these games built. Is it two hands off, two hands on? Like what's going on? But
yeah, this is brutal because I agree with you, Kaylan. Like the one thing that Xbox needs right now is Game Pass, and in order for Game Pass to still be profitable for them, they need games. And the perfect thing for a Game Pass is more AA games like Hi-Fi Rush 2. That would have been a cool palette cleanser between bigger games on Game Pass because it's all third-party based now, which is it's fine. Don't get me wrong, but you can't rely on the third party. You don't know what's coming or not coming. Where the Xbox stuff, it's like, oh, that new Halo game, that Gears of War game, that Forza Horizon game, all of that. Like it's coming.
Yeah, like
to
man, are you
Xbox
telling me
Day
that
One.
we can't put like a team together to get a side scroller Hi-Fi Rush? Because that would also be fucking cool. But like, take that for 1.5 to 2 years tops, and you can't put that out. Like, no, everything is just stuck on this like 4 to 5 plus year schedule now, and it's just slowing the AAA industry down.
Yeah, like that. At that rate, you can put out 1.5 games per console because that's how long the console's life is. So if it takes you 4 to 5 years, you'd get here's Starfield and then here's half another game and then you're done. And that's it. That's all you get. Which is awful. And even if it was that long, where are all these studios with Xbox? They have so many. They have like 30. Even by these numbers, there should be 1 year, even if they all line up. That means like one day, 3 years from now, 30 games are going to release for Xbox all at once. Like something doesn't add up here.
Yeah.
There is an interesting potential. This could be a year where the Game Awards Game of the Year nominees, none of them are first party Microsoft, Sony, or Nintendo games.
Yeah.
There is a possibility that we're in May. There is a distinct possibility that every one of those 6 nominees is not Sony, is not Microsoft, is not Nintendo. And that's insane to think about,
Adam,
given how crazy last year was.
I'm going to make you cringe even more. The release is so like barren, and Star Wars Outlaws from Ubisoft is coming out that there's a possibility that Ubisoft can be Game of the Year.
Oh God, that's so true.
Nah, that game's gonna suck. I don't care what anybody says. Garbage game. I'm already calling it.
Game of the Year.
And ladies and gentlemen, if you like hot takes and bad opinions like that from Adam, we post them every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, wherever you get your podcasts. Fridays, we also load a bonus episode called Side Course. We just talk about random stuff, whatever we want to talk. It's It's a grab bag of topics. You can check it out. If you also want to watch some retro games, Adam does his retro rando, where he goes out and he picks a random game that he gets to watch and play, and you can watch all that fun stuff too on youtube.com. That's on Mondays. And if you want to be part of the group, part of the chat, you can find us in our Discords at linktr.ee/PixelPlay Podcast. We have a great community there. We'd love for you to join us. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you guys next week. Bye for now.